The truth about life after death, what the Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago. Picture the exact second your heart stops beating. The monitor flatlines. Your breath fades. The electrical storms in your brain begin to quiet down. What happens next? For most of human history, we've told ourselves comforting stories to numb the terror of this moment. We imagine a bearded judge weighing our good and bad deeds. We imagine a glowing, immortal soul floating up into the clouds. Or, conversely, we assume it's just a sudden, terrifying plunge into eternal blackness. But what if I told you that according to the direct teachings of the Buddha Vajrayana, none of these comforting stories are true? What the Buddha discovered sitting under a tree 2,500 years ago wasn't a religion of myths and deities. He discovered a mechanism, a cold, precise, undeniable algorithm of nature. He discovered that death is not a termination. It is a transformation. And here is the terrifying part. Unless you possess the exit code, the moment your physical body breaks down, an invisible psychological force, stronger than gravity, will violently pull your consciousness into a brand new existence. You don't get to simply rest in peace. Not until you understand how the system works. Welcome to Buddha Mind Lab. Today, we are deconstructing the ultimate mystery. We are going to explore exactly what happens after death, how your daily habits are writing the code for your next life right now, and the ultimate protocol to hack this system and find permanent freedom. This is the architecture of life and death. To understand death, we must first understand what is actually dying. Modern astrophysics tells us that our bodies are made of stardust, heavy elements forged in the furnace of ancient galaxies. The Buddha taught something remarkably similar. He stated that our physical form is merely a temporary lease on four natural elements: earth, water, fire, and air. At the moment of death, this lease expires. The body breaks down. Earth returns to earth. Water returns to water. But what about the mind? Here is where the Buddha's teaching shatters both Western religion and modern materialism. The Buddha taught that the mind, specifically consciousness, separates from the broken physical shell. But, and this is a massive paradigm shift, this consciousness is not a soul. If there is no permanent soul, no core you, then who is it that gets reborn? Let's look at modern neuroscience. Neuroscientists have identified a network in your brain called the default mode network. This network lights up when you are daydreaming, worrying about the future, or obsessing over your self-image. It is the biological generator of the ego. Science shows us that the self is not a solid object. It is a continuously running process, an illusion created by moving parts. The Buddha realized this 2.5 millennia ago. He called this process Anattā, or non-self. He said that consciousness is like a flame. If you use one burning candle to light a second candle, is it the exact same flame? No. Is it a completely different flame? No. It is a continuation of energy. When an unenlightened person dies, their mind is filled with momentum. The momentum of habits, fears, and attachments. When the body drops, this psychological momentum doesn't just evaporate. It acts as a propulsive force that thrusts consciousness toward a new physical form. So, what exactly is this propulsive force? The Buddha gave it a very specific name, Taṇhā, which translates to craving or thirst. In the ancient texts, a wanderer once asked the Buddha what sustains a being when it drops one body but hasn't yet appeared in another. The Buddha replied using the fire analogy, just as a fire, swept up by the wind, burns by depending on the wind. I declare that a being who has dropped this body is sustained by craving. Craving is the fuel. Think about your daily life. Think about the dopamine loops you are trapped in right now. You pick up your phone, craving a notification. You eat, craving intense flavor. You argue in the comments section, craving to be right. This mechanism of craving in your daily life is the exact same mechanism that fuels rebirth. When the physical body dies, the mind panics. It grasps for existence. It craves a new form to express itself through. And because nature is a closed system of cause and effect, this intense craving pulls the consciousness into a new realm. Let me ground this in a reality we can all understand. Imagine a man named Arthur. Arthur is a highly successful CEO. He spent 60 years building a corporate empire from scratch. He identifies completely with his wealth, his status, and his intellect. He is the man in control. One Tuesday afternoon, sitting in his corner office, Arthur suffers a massive stroke. He wakes up in a hospital bed. He is paralyzed. He cannot speak. The biological machinery is rapidly shutting down. But inside his mind, a storm is raging. Arthur is furious. He is terrified of losing control. He is clinging desperately to his memories, his bank accounts, the very idea of being Arthur. In his final moments, he isn't experiencing a peaceful transition into the light. He is experiencing profound psychological agony. According to the Buddha, Arthur's intense clinging, his absolute refusal to let go, is generating massive karmic momentum. When his heart finally stops, that grasping, fiery energy acts like a magnet, pulling his consciousness toward a new destination that perfectly matches the frequency of his turbulent mind. And where does that consciousness go? The Buddha mapped out the destinations. He stated that the next life is determined entirely by a person's karma. It is vital to understand that karma is not a cosmic judge punishing you. Karma is simply software programming. If you write toxic code, the software crashes. If you repeatedly act with greed, hatred, and delusion, you program your consciousness to gravitate toward lower states of existence. The Buddha explicitly outlined 5 realms of existence. The hell realm, a state of pure psychological and physical torment. The animal realm, a state of pure survival, instinct, and fear. The realm of afflicted spirits, often called hungry ghosts, a state of insatiable addiction that can never be fulfilled. The human realm, a rare, precious state of balance between pleasure and pain, the perfect ground for attaining enlightenment. And finally, the heavenly realm, a state of refined pleasure and long life, born from generosity and ethical living. But hear this clearly, none of these realms are permanent. Even if you are reborn as a magnificent deity in the heavenly realms, your lifespan will eventually run out. You will die, and you will be thrown back into the cycle. This cycle is called samsara, a perpetual, exhausting cosmic treadmill. It's quite ironic when you look at how modern society deals with this. We are absolutely terrified of death. Right now, there are billionaires pouring infinite wealth into life extension technologies. They are freezing their bodies in liquid nitrogen and funding startups trying to upload human consciousness to the cloud. We are obsessed with upgrading the hardware so it never breaks. But the Buddha would likely look at this and smile with deep compassion. Because even if you successfully upload your mind to a digital server, what are you actually uploading? You are just taking your suffering, your anxieties, your endless desires, and your ego, and trapping them in a digital cycle of rebirth. You haven't escaped the prison, you've just digitized it. True freedom doesn't come from extending the lifespan of the ego. It comes from extinguishing the ego entirely. So, what happens to those who figure it out? What happens to the awakened beings, the arahants and the Buddha himself, when they die? If a person practices the path and fully realizes the truth, they destroy craving and ignorance. They wipe the hard drive clean. At the moment an enlightened being dies, they experience nibbana, the final, complete extinguishing with no fuel remaining. The physical elements dissolve just like anyone else's. But the mind? Because there is absolutely no craving left, there is no fuel. And without fuel, the fire does not jump to a new house. The cycle of rebirth stops. Forever. A Brahmin once asked the Buddha, "Where does an enlightened being go after death? Do they exist, or do they not exist?" The Buddha refused to answer the question directly, because the question itself is flawed. He used the fire analogy again. When a fire goes out, do you ask if it went north, south, east, or west? The Brahmin said, "No, it just went out because it lacked fuel." Exactly. To say the Buddha exists after death applies human concepts of space and time to a reality that is completely beyond space, time, and conceptual thought. The end of the self is not a terrifying void of nothingness. It is an indescribable, ultimate freedom. You don't have to wait until your deathbed to find this freedom. In fact, if you wait until then, it will be too late. The Buddha gave us a life protocol to prepare for the ultimate transition. It is the practice of dying before you die. Try this tonight. Micro-letting go. When you lay your head on the pillow, treat the moment you fall asleep as a rehearsal for dying from this world. Let go of the anger you carried today. Let go of your job title. Let go of tomorrow's anxieties. Leave all your emotional baggage at the bedroom door. Practice observing your emotions as things that are born and die. When anger arises, don't say, "I am angry." Say, "Anger has arisen, and it will die." Train your brain to become intimately familiar with letting go. Death is not an enemy to run from. It is our greatest teacher. As long as we chase desires and carry the heavy weight of the ego, we are just throwing wood into the fire of our own suffering. But right now, in this very moment, you have the power to stop feeding the fire. Take a deep breath in. Feel the life force sustaining your body. And as you exhale slowly, allow the tension, the craving, and the fear to flow out into the air. You are safe. You are right here. And when the time comes for nature to take everything back, you will be ready to return it, with a gentle smile and a completely free mind. If this journey into the Buddha's wisdom brought a sense of lightness to your heart, please subscribe, like, and share this with someone who is searching for peace. May your mind be clear, and may you find true freedom. Good night.